All right. Today is June 1st, and today we want to start covering over a little bit about some other hobbies that and other challenging events that we've started outside of running. Um, I think I don't think we have covered it before, but we are we're amateurs. We're amateurs at a lot of stuff, but we're amateurs and newbies to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, which is what I think probably one of the better martial arts to subdue an opponent without really like injuring them or causing a lot of brain damage. We probably started Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, I want to say June of last year.
Like a year from
Yeah,
now?
I think you started like May.
Yeah.
But you were the one to first start. If you want to give a shout out and to the gym that you were going to, and just kind of what the setup was to people that probably don't do jiu-jitsu, and probably a little bit, because I knew it was an intimidating experience for me walking in to a gym that I had never been to before with pretty much killers.
So I kind of just pull up to this place like mid-afternoon, and there's like 3 people in there, 2 people rolling, and then like a trainer or someone teaching them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go in, and the guy sees me walk in. But yeah, I'm interested in signing up and whatnot. So he kind of just gives me like a little tour around the gym. It's a pretty cool gym. Just I'd say like 3/4 of the gym was just mat. It was like just like a big mat.
Mm-hmm.
They had 2 sections. They had like 3 sections. One section was like a smaller mat. The second section was like the bigger mat.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because I think they would split like the kids and older people up at the same time because the times would overlap. Then they also had like a little cage in the corner.
Oh, like for sparring or outside of like boxing,
like MMA
and,
type stuff, yeah. And like a little like gym setup too in the corner.
Okay.
So he was just walking me around there, showed us like the lineage of Felipe, who was the main guy. Zikro was the name of the gym.
Yeah. How was your first experience? Did you start right away? Did they start making you roll? Did you learn technique?
They offered, I think, the first week free.
Oh, cool.
So they didn't really have you doing anything crazy, just kind of like practice on like the shrimping thing, like movements, stuff like that. Just kind of conditioning, stretching, stuff like that. Then once you sign up, they kind of put you into it, once you sign all the papers and stuff. And then once like I signed up, the next time I came, the people were extremely friendly.
Oh, yeah.
They want to help you. They want to see you get better. I had a background in wrestling going into it, so that's pretty much all I sort of knew. So I kind of used that, and then wrestling, some of the moves in wrestling you don't want to carry over to jiu-jitsu, like giving up your back.
Yes. What was the big difference between the two? If you had to like compare it like to like a really big transition.
You don't want to use a lot of your strength as you would in wrestling.
Especially learning.
Yeah.
Especially learning, because then you're going to rely on your strength doing technique and stuff like that, and you're basically just muscling your way through, and you can't do that to somebody who actually knows real jiu-jitsu.
And the biggest mistake was just giving up my back, for sure.
Yeah.
Because then found out that, people can choke you.
Yeah. And you can't reach somebody. You can't do any you can't control them in any way. And what was one of the most fascinating parts of like learning jiu-jitsu was that it's a lot of control with your legs.
Mm-hmm.
It was less like arm movement, and you really have to. I mean, the arms were basically an extension of how to set up the next move, but your legs were the actual thing that you should be using to control people.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, go on.
I think the biggest thing that the good thing that carried over from wrestling was the takedowns and just feeling like body control, like seeing where the leverage is, where they're putting more weight on their back feet or more weight towards the front, just to kind of see where they're moving.
Because you want to get them off kilter and eventually take the game to the ground.
Yeah. So that was, I was just used to the whole like grabbing, gripping, stuff like that. But giving up the back, I learned pretty quick. That was a big no-no.
But also, for anybody who has never done wrestling or jujitsu, jujitsu and wrestling are similar in the sense that you're taking your opponent to the ground. It's not any kicks, punches, which I think was a little bit more enticing for me because just coming off of pretty much a 6 or 7 year of playing football. I was kind of in the sense that like I was kind of concerned about my brain because being in school and I'm trying to learn and like I don't want my memory to go to crap. So I didn't want to go right into something where I would be like getting hit in the head a lot. Not to say that like one of the most common injuries, and you can still get CTE from jiu-jitsu, from being slammed to the ground too hard and stuff like that. But I mean, for the most part, I think the only big injuries is probably like joint issues or maybe like spine and disc compressions. I know like one of the, I think Eddie Bravo went through like 3 or 4 like spine surgeries where they had to like basically fuse like his spine discs together. Yeah, because
That's crazy.
because you're putting all that pressure on your when you're in guard, which to inform, guard is when you are on your back, and there's different positions and different like formations of guard, but basically you want your legs wrapped around the hips or higher, just so that person can't get their full body weight on you, which is bad news bears, because once they have their full body weight on you and you don't know Brazilian jiu-jitsu or how to get out of that, and it's pretty tiring when you have somebody that's probably at least 150 pounds plus on top of you, and it's just you just feel helpless. And I think that's a useful tool to know how to get out from underneath somebody, because once you're there, they can. I mean, if you watch UFC or MMA, you know that if somebody has their full body weight on your core or on your hips, there's almost like
once they can control like your hips,
they can just wail on
very
you.
hard to move. Yeah.
I mean, what my go-to, and I have no wrestling background whatsoever, so takedowns were not like a big issue, but they were a big concern for me. I was just my go-to was just to get close, grab, and then however we fell. And like once I got down, I can kind of like muscle my way and figure out how to get on top again. But the takedowns were especially because I'm not a good shooter, and shooting is something that you would like for wrestling. I mean, if you want to explain the technique a little bit, you probably have a better idea of shooting and how to explain it.
Well, I actually kind of forgot what's shooting again.
Well,
it's like
basically when you're gonna like, you know how you would drop your knee and slide into their hips.
Oh, okay.
So like if you're gonna shoot for a leg, like a double leg or a single leg.
Okay, so yeah, so in wrestling you sort of have like 2 main options. You can go for a single leg takedown or a double leg takedown. Mm-hmm. Usually, most likely you're going for a single leg takedown because you're working on half their body. Mm-hmm. So we would do this drill in wrestling where you would just continuously like drop down on your knee like you're doing a lunge, mm-hmm. and then drive upwards and then grab your hand like that. Yeah. And then we would go with the left side. Boom, boom, boom. And we would practice that like so many times in wrestling because that's like one of the main moves in wrestling. But
I mean, if you can get control of that person, you can pretty much take the game to the ground however you want, and then that's a big factor in playing if you're gonna win a match or not. Mm-hmm. But I mean, also you can squirm your way out and stuff like that. But it's not the end of the world if you get caught in a takedown. But it's definitely
that's
not
probably
on your
very
side.
Important for if you're getting into like competing too in jiu-jitsu. You definitely want to know those takedowns because they always start from the top, right?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure usually
at the gym that I was going to. I think maybe just for like safety reasons. We would most 90% of the time we start from our knees, mm-hmm. or start from like a guard position or something like that.
If they're working on a specific technique or something like that, like during the day, I am sure they probably ran like the gym that you went to similarly, but it was mostly you would work at a very slow pace, maybe 25-50% of like how you would actually like go if you were fighting. And rolling, if people don't know what that is just a fancy or a word that you would use to spar pretty much.
Exactly.
You're just rolling on the ground and trying to wrestle with the other person, but you're going like 50%, so you have or maybe even less, just so you can get the idea of what the instructor is trying to teach you that day. But essentially, takedowns are a big part of it, and that's. I mean, it is and it isn't, because I noticed that like people like there's a big jiu-jitsu guy that usually I know Eddie Bravo does this specifically. I think maybe because he's a smaller guy or it just works for technique for him, but especially when he went against Royler in 2003, I love that video. If anybody wants to just watch like an amazing heroic story, like watch Eddie Bravo versus Royler Gracie in 2003, and then you could watch the new one that I think happened in like the rematch that happened in like 2015, 2016. But anybody who doesn't know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the Gracies are the family that basically started this new type of martial art, because 75% of fights end up on the ground. And if you know how to control somebody on the ground, you pretty much got them.
If you're thinking that you want to start a martial art and you can't figure out which one to do,
I would say start with this.
And if you still don't think that's a good idea, watch UFC #1.
Oh, whoa!
And then you'll know.
Whoa!
Which martial art to do.
Okay. Scratch what I said about Royler Gracie, Eddie Bravo. But even though that is an
is
amazing video, but UFC #1 is definitely
Because I watched UFC 1, I was like, dude, this little guy just beat all these people.
170 pounds. Was it? It wasn't Royler. It was, which one was it? It was I forget who.
Not Hoist.
It was Hoist. You're right.
Hoist?
You're right. It was
Okay.
Hoist. Hoist Gracie in UFC #1. Basically, UFC back in the day in '93 when they first started, it was essentially very minimal rules, no weight class, and it was just they were trying to see which martial arts was the best.
Yeah, which one was the most dominant?
Or which type of self-defense, because they had boxing, Western boxing, they had judo, they had shoot wrestling, they
Some
had
stuff I've never even heard of.
taekwondo. Yeah. Ken Shamrock, who went against Royce in like the second round, he was predicted to go all the way, and like it was an upset.
It's crazy just seeing like the size of the people that he was going against.
It was a 250, maybe I'm exaggerating. He was definitely over 200 pounds. Just this, he looked like he had just been eating steroids for breakfast. Okay, this guy is jacked. Whether he does steroids or not back in the day, doesn't matter. It just looked like he was a freak of nature. And this average looking Brazilian guy in a gi, kind of like goofy looking, just
he was wearing a gi too.
Choked everybody out.
The crazy thing is that when the Gracies were figuring out which one of their family members they wanted to put in the UFC, they purposely chose one of the smaller ones just to prove how effective their martial art was, which is it's insane.
Well, who is Rickson is renowned as the best in the of all time. Like, especially the fact that he's still alive today, and I'll always go on his page because he's such like I don't know, like whenever you think of like. Not like a monk mentality. I mean, I guess you could say monk mentality too. But
it's like a mindful.
Yeah, just a legendary, just kind of like kept humble, kept to himself kind of guy. He's just so like, he's never flashy about anything, even though I'm sure that family's worth millions. He's like taking pictures with his like dogs and stuff like that. And like, like Christmas and his family and a very humble guy. And it seems like he really has life figured out.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, not maybe figured out, but kind of like, he's got this calm serenity to him where nothing really bothers him. You know what I mean? And anyway, back to where was I going with Eddie Bravo and Royler Gracie? Oh, yeah, takedowns. Eddie Bravo always, or at least in that match, I mean, like, and you'll see it occasionally where, like, the guy will just drop to his, like, even if the other guys, like, they start stand up and they just drop to the ground and just kind of just play, like if you start rolling, you kind of just try to get your good hand position, trying to get a wrist or something like that to pull them in or something like that.
Hand fighting almost.
Yeah, you're just starting with like your hand fighting, and you're just trying to get some wrist control or something. But he's especially in that match, which is just like beyond. I guess he didn't want to take a chance with the fact that he could get taken down, so he was like, I'm just gonna bring him into my guard. And he just kind of just played around with him a little bit, and he's standing up. He's basically crisscross applesauce on the floor, and he's just playing around with Royler, and then gets him in his half guard. And like, I mean, that's essentially I guess if takedowns are not your forte and you're in competition and you don't want to take a risk, I guess you could do it that way. I'm sure it definitely works. In a fight, I don't think anybody's going to want to like just in a real fight, you're going to want to know how to take down somebody.
Yeah, I've seen some people just go straight, like they'll be standing up and then they'll just sit down.
Yeah.
And play defense until they can make a move.
Yeah, but it kind of forces that other person to like, okay, I got to get on the ground with him.
Yeah.
Or you wait it out and then like kind of waste time and it's like, all right, what are we doing here, you know? But I mean, still, nonetheless, amazing fight. He ended up catching him in a triangle, which was like insane because in Royler versus Eddie Bravo, it was like they stopped. It was the ADC championships in Brazil. It wasn't Rio, or was it? What was that city called? I don't know. Anyway, but it was a televised event, but they were only televising like certain like matches, and it was televised in Brazil, and they stopped all the other matches because this Royler Gracie guy was such like he was such a renowned hero in the Brazilian community, especially the BJJ community, but in the Brazilian community in general, they were like and he hadn't lost in forever. I mean, and pretty much every win was like a submission. It wasn't even by points. So it was insane to think that like, oh, he's gonna crush this American that's not even a black belt. We're just gonna show how good he is. Mm. They brought all the cameras over, they shut down all the other matches, and then the biggest upset.
It was crazy.
Yeah, he catches him in a triangle, and like you could just hear only I think it was Rogan and one of the guys one of the other buddies that were just yelling on the side. He's like, lock the triangle, and it's like quiet, pitch. Just nobody else is saying a word because they're all in suspense, and then he catches him, and it was probably, definitely one of the things that probably launched Eddie Bravo into his career that he is today. And he started developing, he worked with the UFC for a long time and started developing like ways where, because eventually even after UFC 1, I think eventually people started figuring out, okay, how to like counter like most of the like guard positions and figured out what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was all about. And once you kind of know and you know a little bit of it, you can kind of like figure out how to work around it. And then Eddie Bravo kind of a little bit revolutionized the sport a little bit. I mean, from the little knowledge that we have, it seems like he started revolutionizing it to make it more fit to MMA, to where these guys, especially when they were bringing in guard, because they were just getting guard and then get ground and pound. I mean, you could still reach somebody from guard if you're just going to punch them. So he invented the rubber guard, which essentially utilizes your legs to hold them in a position where, you could pretty much like put it around their neck. But Eddie Bravo is a freak of nature, but he's able to teach these specific techniques to especially a lot of his students that use this technique called rubber guard. And I'm pretty limited knowledge about it, but it's a revolutionary idea in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just bring up the point that Jiu-Jitsu it's not the same it's been since it started.
No. It's changed.
It's changing and it's evolving to be used in different ways and stuff like that.
Have you ever? I forget what his name was, but there's this guy who put a leg locks. Oh, excuse me. Leg locks were like kind of frowned upon in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community, because not frowned upon, but if you caught somebody in a leg lock, it was kind of like, oh, that's not really what you're supposed to be doing in a competition. But then more and more people adopted it, because why would you ignore the other half of your body? Why would you only go for chokes and arm locks and stuff like that when you could be using this other half of your body? And I forget the gentleman's name, but he created this like systemic approach to like how, he's another revolutionary guy in the jiu-jitsu community, where you basically work from your lower half, and leg locks became this really big thing eventually. But that's a lot of people. It just depends on what your specialty is in the sport. You can go for, if you're good at a Kimura, if you're good at an Americano, which are basically arm locks, and you drill those things over and over and over again, and you're not so good at a leg lock, well, then maybe you should stick to what you're good at in a competition, especially. Maybe if you're training, definitely go and strengthen your weaknesses. But yeah, it's a crazy sport. It really is, and it's a lot of fun and super nice people. And I think that's well, I mean, it's been covered before, and you and me probably agree on this, that like it gets out most of this aggression that we probably have on a day-to-day basis, because like just like you need some type of outlet, especially like running. I mean, you need that outlet for exercising, and lifting weights is probably a good thing too, to get that extra energy out, to know that you're not completely helpless and you're not just this walking dummy that somebody could just like attack at any point, and you have some certain knowledge that you can bring to the table in case you need to use it. Definitely puts you at ease a little bit. I mean, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a sport, exercise, other than like doing like weightlifting or anything like that, jiu-jitsu is the way to go. Get a good workout, sweat a lot. You're learning great skills for, self-defense. If you see, like we see advancement in running and how we get better, we can go a little bit further each time. When we first started training for our ultra marathons, you advance with your stripes and your belts system. And it's fun, man. It's fun. Time. It's a fun workout to do. Yeah. And you also just feel way more confident, walking around like you're humbled and you're confident, and it's just great.
I think that's the whole idea of the sport, is that like you, no matter how, even black belts, like no matter how good you are, if you roll with, even with like, I've heard like Jocko even talk about this, because everybody thinks Jocko just because he's a black belt, and I think he's like a 2 degree or something like that, but I mean, or 2nd degree, but I mean, he like, everybody thinks like I'm like this guy that never gets beat in jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. No, everybody gets tapped all the time. Like, it's not like you're not gonna go in there and get tapped. I mean, maybe it happened by more, like depending on how good you are and how like your skill level is, but like you're gonna get tapped by somebody that's gonna catch you and, on accident, or even if you but that's how you get better.
Yeah, if you want to, it's also it's definitely the safest. I'm going on a limb here, but I would say it's probably the safest martial art you can do.
Oh, for sure. Especially because what other sport can you actively spar in every class? What other martial art can you actively, boxing? You're gonna get hit in the head all the time and get, maybe one day you have a headache and
can't do that.
Yeah.
Wrestling, you can't take those takedowns every time getting hit on the mat. Jiu-jitsu, you can go 100% every time with the little risk of getting hurt.
Yeah. I mean, you people do get hurt, and you get occasion. Actually, it was a funny story. Not important anyway. But it's there's a low risk in getting hurt. I mean, obviously there are common injuries, like you can, hyperextend your knee. You can, it's
very rare.
Yeah, joint issues, and you get that occasional sore and stuff like that, soreness that you get from getting tapped and stuff like that. But I mean, take a day, ice, take care of your body, and you'll be fine.
And just maybe roll with people who are more like you. If you're a little weaker, you're more at risk to like injuring yourself, your joints or something. Find someone who's similar like that, so you guys can both match each other's speeds. Or instead of rolling with an inexperienced white belt, roll with a black belt who knows where to land. Just do it a lot safer.
I have to say, I'm guilty of this for sure. Where, like you were saying, like an inexperienced white belt, and I've been that guy, and I'm sure I will continue to be that guy until I learn more about this sport. But like I'm the guy who's gonna like I don't want to get tapped, and so I'm gonna go all out, and I'm gonna really try to muscle it out. But I mean, that's really not the way you should be learning. You should be really, I mean, you and this person that you're like, I mean, unless you've practiced this technique the whole class and you're going to really try to like execute on this guy, go 100%. But I mean, like, you shouldn't be like just going crazy and spastic movements and stuff like that. And I'm definitely guilty of it. I mean, like,
we all are.
Yeah, I'm like 100%. And I remember the first time I realized it too, because I would always get people whenever I got side control or mount, I would just wrap around their back while they're on the ground, and then I would just squeeze tight. And I would squeeze tight, and then the first time, because I didn't want them to get away, and depending on what I was trying to set up, I was just making sure that they were worried about the squeeze, and then they weren't worried about where I was putting my leg or something like that. And and the first time I realized that was when this new kid walked into Renzo Gracie's studio, and or his gym, and I was kind of like, all right, let me roll with the new guy, or my opportunity came up where I needed to roll with the new guy, and I kind of was slowly learning that that's really not the way you should be practicing. And this kid, obviously, I think it was his like first or second day, and probably like same like strength level as me, yada yada yada, and he was doing the same thing I was, and I was like, oh my god, now I know how this feels. Like, it's like this kid's just going crazy. He doesn't know, but I mean, that's the learning curve. You don't know what to do your first day or your second day. You're kind of just like trying to survive. You're just trying to figure. You don't want to seem like like you're like a wimp.
Yeah.
So you're like, you know what, I'm going to give it my all, and then you end up getting a little too crazy with it. But I mean, that's the learning curve. And you eventually, once you develop more technique, you rely less on your strength. Not to say that the strength won't help you, but you start relying less. And if you do rely on the strength more, you're going to tire yourself out more.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it relates also to like life situations too. You can't get all upset or something. You got to realize what happened. Yeah. See what you did wrong. Yeah. And kind of like fix it. What else? I was thinking something else.
What would you say that like you were saying one time that, especially in wrestling, you like, I remember in high school you said like, oh, compared to every other sport, definitely was the most tiring. And I would have to say the same thing for jiu-jitsu, because it's kind of that like you have to really have some cardio to build it up, like to be able to withstand like 3 minutes like rolling with somebody. That is a battle. That's like you're not even against him, but against yourself.
I remember I said just a single wrestling match. I don't know how long they last. I forgot. I think it's like 3-minute rounds or something.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, but just a short wrestling match is, I'd say, twice as tiring, or no, just as tiring as playing a full game of football.
Oh yeah. You're exhausted. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like you just did sprints. It's like over and over and over and over again. Yeah, I remember one time we were I was up at UCF at the club, and I was looking around, and I guess the AC was like pretty cold that day, but like I was looking at all the people, and like after we like got done rolling and everything like that, the instructor was talking, and I was looking at everybody, and there was just steam coming off of everybody. They looked like they were going like Super Saiyan or something like that. They're on fire. But it's a tiring sport, and I definitely think that like running definitely helps aid with that cardio. Like, I think you've said this before.
Yeah, I think when I first rolled with someone there, they're like, it was like they knew it was like my second or third day. Yeah. It's like, wow, man, you don't get tired that easily. Like, yeah, I do a lot of like cardio stuff.
Yeah, which definitely helps. I mean, if you're gonna think about eventually going into jiu-jitsu, I would definitely start working on building up, especially if you're not the most athletic. Start working on your strength a little bit. Start working on your cardio, because that's gonna be a real bitch of a day if you get in there and you're not like a little bit prepared for that, But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a martial art to get into for inexperienced people like us. I mean,
small people too.
Yeah.
Like if you're smaller.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the few martial arts that small people can like really dominate the big guy. Yeah, or beat the big guy. It gives you a chance, But yeah, what else? I wanted to say something else about. Oh yeah, I mean like. Well, I'll tell you about my experience going into the gym, and I think it was like I started like a week or two after you did, and I was like looking around for like Renzo Gracie studios, and I'm like, or I was just looking for like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu place. I wasn't looking for Gracie studios specifically, but I figured that would probably be the way to go, and I was kind of looking around. I knew there was one online in West Palm, and I was kind of going on like this like wild goose chase. It was like I was looking for the Holy Grail or something like that, There was one that used to be down in West Palm, but they closed it down, or it moved somewhere. I was like, crap, all right, where else am I going to go? And I started looking it up, and there was Renzo Gracie's like 20 minutes west of me, like down Lake Worth, and like it was somewhere in Lantana. It was like Lake Worth Road, and like it was like 20 minutes west. And I showed up the one day, and I had like a little extra money that I saved up, and I was like, you know what? I mean, how much is it? And it was like a little over $100 or something like that. and to get the gi, because you have to have the gi, and it's I mean, the gi really gives you something to grab onto, especially when you're learning. I think maybe, and they do have like no-gi classes. Do they have like a no-gi class on your day? I think it was like Fridays for me or something like that. I think I went once, but it's definitely a lot more fun without the gi. But I mean, I think for a learning curve, you really want the gi, just so you know where to grab places and do certain moves. But I mean, it was fun, and I signed up, and they give you like a quick, once you get your gi and everything set up, the instructor or the guy who ran the place, he kind of like gave me like a quick like 30-minute class to sit in, and he was just working with me and showing me different things. And I think he showed me an Americana, and I'd never been like choked out like that before, or not choked out, but put in like a shoulder lock like that before. And then what else? He put me in a rear naked and something like that, but not like rough, but like just kind of showing me how it feels, how it feels. It's give me an idea, and then he would have me do it to him. He'd be like, "Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, did it." And then after that, he like gave me like the spiel, and like okay, this is, and then the schedule for the classes. I think I went like 2 days later, and like the first class, I didn't do terrible, but I got tapped out, and I got tapped out like when I did get tapped out, I got tapped out bad. I got tapped out by like a 120-pound, like 16-year-old that had been doing it for like, I mean, he'd been doing jiu-jitsu probably for like 4 or 5 years. Caught me in a triangle, and I'm like, and you don't want to have a big ego when you're doing jiu-jitsu, because you have to accept the fact that like you're learning, and the fact that if you get caught, you really don't want to, like, you want to tap out if you get caught, because when you've been caught. You don't want to think that you can just muscle your way out, because then you're going to pass out. And
they've got you.
Yeah, they've
surrender.
Got you. Just
try better next time.
Yeah, learn. He caught me in like a triangle, and I didn't realize what it was until it was too late. And for people who don't know what a triangle is, it's basically when you you're wrapping your two legs in the form of a triangle. That's why they call it a triangle. But it's basically putting one leg over the back, across the back, and the other leg is going over your one shoulder, and you've got in between your legs, you've got their arm to keep them levered, like pulled into you, so they can't really.
Isn't the arm kind of like choking them out?
Yeah, that's like one arm's in and one arm's like outside of the triangle. So you got this arm free, but
you're choking them out with your legs.
Yeah, and it's crazy.
Your legs become arms.
And I was just, I mean, I was not tapping out, and the little circles started peering around my eyes and started closing in like that. And I was like, oh my God. And I just like tapped, like, and he was like, man, you almost took, the kid told me, a 16-year-old kid goes, you almost took a trip, man. It's like, so you can't be like thinking that you're Mr. Tough Guy and going to squirm out of every situation that you've never been in before. You gotta kind of be humbled. And I mean, people that, first join jiu-jitsu are going to learn that the hard way, or you're going to accept the fact that you're still learning.
Can't always go into something and think you're the best at it.
Yeah. I think that's a really big rule to live by in life. Especially even if you're a really high level at something, you should still keep an open mind. I think. I mean, and I fall to like not listening to that too all the time. But I think you should always.
It's hard. Yeah.
You want to be right.
You never want to be the smartest person.
No,
because that means you're not going to learn anything.
Exactly.
You're not going to learn anything new if you think you know everything.
Yeah. But
check yourself.
Yeah. it's a big man. You gotta. Jiu-jitsu is a really, really humbling sport, and it's probably one of the better martial arts to humble you and kind of teach you to be a little bit open-minded.
A lot of things you learn in there transfers over to like life stuff. Yeah.
It's real. But anyway, so I went for a few weeks, and it was the summer before I went up to UCF, so I was kind of just trying to get my time there at Renzo Gracie's studio, and I learned a lot from them, and it's amazing, like how, I mean, you've had the similar experience with how everybody's so friendly, but like even with people that are like a higher level than you, I got a funny story like there, but anyway, there was this blue belt named Nick, and he was like, he had competed a little bit, and he obviously knew a lot more than me, because I'm brand new to the sport, and he was kind of just like instructing, and we're kind of rolling pretty hard, and you can tell that I'm kind of going after it a little bit, and I really don't want to lose this roll, and I'm like, and then like he's in control of the situation, like he's not, I was not getting him, And he's in control of the situation. He was like, he caught me at something. I forget what it was, but it was pretty much a submission. And he was like, well, he stops and he goes, hey, you know how to get out of this? And I go, no. And like, we're basically fighting. And he just stops and tells me how to get out of it. And then I got out of it. I was like, holy crap. I was like, I got out of that. Oh my God. But like, it just shows you that like these people aren't there to like, you're not going in there with like a super aggressive mindset. Like somebody's always about to kill you. Like everybody's there to help each other. And you got to be open-minded like that.
Like they're not trying to like beat you up every time. They're not trying to win every time. They're trying to teach you too. Cause they were at your level at one point.
That's what makes it so humbling, I think, because everybody knows what it's like to be that helpless, and it's like, well, you're taking the effort. You're the few people that are taking the effort to come to this class and actually want to learn. So I'm gonna help you out because I've been there too. Yeah. But So anyway, he was he helped me out to get out of that, and a bunch of different people did that. Like while I was learning, and like I slowly got better, and you kind of learn like new techniques and obviously leverage and when somebody's about to get out of your grip and stuff like that. And I mean, we're still newbies, and I say that with like a big exclamation point at the end, but it's definitely a goal that I want to keep like keep progressing at and keep going with. But yeah, I think black belt is a really good goal to have. I don't think you should be focusing on your black belt. I think you should be taking one class at a time, but I think that should be like where you want to end up eventually.
Focus on like perfecting those like basic fundamentals,
and that'll get you there. So also, I don't know if you had any funny stories, but I got this one where I was going against our instructor, and he had just gotten back from like a competition up in New York at another Renzo Gracie studio, and he came back, and I think it was like his name is Will, and I had like probably about my height, and a pretty built guy, and he was and. I guess, like when you start partnering up with people, it's a role. Like you kind of switch off with different people every once in a while. And I guess there was an odd number of people. So he like came in and like I showed up a little, like I guess I didn't grab a person at the right time. So I was the odd man out. And he was like, oh, I'll roll with you. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to roll against a black belt. All right. This is weird. It's like I'm definitely not winning this. And then I'd never rolled with, I think the highest belt I had rolled with was probably maybe a purple belt, and even then I was helpless. So I'm like, there's no way. I'm just gonna give it my all and see what happens. And you do not know how helpless you are until somebody starts playing with you, and they're not even hurting you. They're just like all he did was sit on his back like an upside down turtle and just keep moving, and I couldn't even get on top of him.
Like a puppet.
He had complete control of the situation, but it was hilarious. And he was just laughing. And then he like eventually like told me, "Hey, this is what you gotta do." And I said, "Oh, okay." Yeah, but everybody's there to help. Yeah. Any funny stories you think of?
No.
I just thought that always stuck with me because it was just so like it was humiliating at the same time, but it was like, oh wow, okay. But he showed me that like. After he showed me how good he was, he showed me how to do it properly. And I think that's what the whole thing is. Like, you need to be humbled first, and then you can learn the right way to do it. You know what I mean? Because you can't, we don't want to give it the secrets away with you not learning a lesson first. You know what I mean? Because then that defeats the purpose. Yeah. But, we can go in a little bit about, how important stretching is in this sport, too.
Oh yeah,
I mean we know how important stretching is, but I mean obviously you want to take the reins on this one a little bit, especially for running. But I mean,
yeah. So I guess we can start off with the running part first. Yeah. Hip flexors get extremely tight. It's just from running a lot, and then us being college students sitting down at a desk all day and just studying and stuff like that. Your hip flexors get really tight. So we really focus on opening up those. I know like 2 weeks before the 50-mile race, I was stretching like crazy, like an hour each night, just stretching for like each position for like 5-10 minutes at a time.
Oh really? You would just stay in that and make sure that just really loosened up?
Yeah, you just feel a lot looser.
Was there any, like, did you get into, how were you doing it? Were you just, like, looking up yoga videos, or were you just, like, taking basic principles of, like, stretches that you knew and, like, just putting that into a long period of time?
I sort of just have, like, my own routine of the stretches I've learned just from doing sports and stuff. And then if there was something that was bothering me, I would look up a stretch for that particular thing and then add that into my routine.
I mean, I'm very new into, and I want to do a later episode on, like, benefits of, like, yoga and stretching and stuff like that, and we'll do a little more research about that, because obviously that's a whole other aspect to, like, it's another type of, like, sport in general. Mm-hmm. But it's a practice, and you, just like everything else, you have to keep at it, and you can't let it up, because if you let it up, then you're going to fall behind. And while you're, especially doing the things that we're doing, you need to keep your body limber. I mean, it's like you're just going to do more damage if you don't.
It's another thing, like, you learn jiu-jitsu, you know, you're not the best at. You're probably, if you haven't stretched, like, a lot, like, you're probably, like, you don't realize how tight you are in some places. Yeah. You know, like, especially a lot of people are tight in the hips.
Yeah. Runners, it's a big problem with runners, because, like, you're, like, all you're doing is you're just doing that, like, jarring up and down the whole time, and like, that's where most of your weight, your upper body weight, just keeps going down, and your discs are basically going like this the whole time while you're doing it, and they're just compressing. So you want to really, like, let that out. And I think one of the big things, and not really a stretch per se, but it's a good way to, like, relieve tension in your back, is when you, like, I found, is when you just, like, you grab, like, a bar, a pull-up bar or something like that, you just hang from there. You just kind of, like, roll out your shoulders while you're on there.
Yeah, back to your shoulders.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a really good technique. But
and for jiu-jitsu too, like, just to be able to use your feet better, or not your feet, but your legs better. Yeah. They need to be flexible. Yeah. You know, to be able to get those triangles. Yeah. Especially if you want to do the rubber guard, you got to be extremely flexible. God.
I was, like, trying to figure out, because most people have to pull their leg to be able to do it, because you have to basically take your leg and pull it basically back behind their neck to do that, the rubber guard. And it's like, I mean, I'm not flexible from my hips down. I mean, that's just, and I was like, oh my God, that's going to suck. I mean, it's going to hurt me, but more that's going to hurt him. But that's why you got to be flexible. You got to be able to have that, like, that dexterity to be able to just pull your leg on its own that far. And that's what stretching is going to do for you. Yeah. I have to say that, like, one of the hardest things I've ever done, I mean, yoga in general is it's just a tough time. And, but one of the hardest things I've ever done, especially just, like, keeping yourself in the game, is, like, hot yoga. Oh my God. Holy crap. That's, like, it's 90 minutes of you in a 100-degree room doing stretches. And I thought doing stretches alone was, like, just, like, hard enough, but, like, you're sweating buckets in there, and it's nuts. I mean, it's probably one of the it's like doing yoga or stretching in a sauna, and it's nuts. I mean, and you can do this at any age too, and it's super healthy for you.
I need to try that.
It's a good
when
time.
did the yoga studios open back up?
Yeah.
We're still in phase 1 though, right?
Yeah, I don't think we've progressed any further. I think with everything that's going on, I think that COVID is probably going to have a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if it spiked again.
Yeah, probably going to extend a little bit.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah, but we'll probably end up doing a little bit more research. How much time do we got? I want to do a little bit more research on, like, stretching in general.
45 minutes.
I want to do a little bit more research on benefits of stretching and stuff like that, just to be a little bit more knowledgeable about it. But we'll definitely cover a later episode on stretching and stuff like that.
We could probably do, like, a whole podcast of just, like, taking, like, maintenance.
Oh yeah,
body maintenance, food, diet, stretching, stuff like that, supplements.
Yeah. I was thinking about that on the ride over.
Yeah.
Anyhow. All right, that's it for today.
All right.